Well, alright, guys, how are you all doing tonight? And this is Luke back here with yet another album review. Now, tonight we're going to be reviewing Skinless, Trample the Weak, Hurdle the Dead, released on June 13th, 2006 on Relapse Records, of course. Now, Skinless is a band that's vocals, I will say that it had to grow on me, as I did not enjoy them too much at first, but they did get more enjoyable as time went on. Now let's get into the biography of this band, why don't we? Skinless is an American death metal band from Glens Falls, New York. The band formed in 1992 and disbanded in 2011, but reformed yet again in 2013. Now, Skinless was formed by Ryan Wade and Noah Carpenter in the town of South Glens Falls, New York, after relocating to various New York towns and cities such as Saratoga, Clifton Park, and Cahooz. The band settled in Troy, New York. Now, Skinless is known for its consistently intense performances, as well as for its lyrical mix of in-world demise and comedy, which at times sterilizes well-known death metal lyrics from bands such as Carcass and Cannibal Corpse, and just the overall genre of death metal in general. Now, these lyrical themes are demonstrated in songs such as The Optimist, about a crumbling human society, and Tug of War Intensifies, which depicts children playing schoolyard games with a surgery patient's internal organs. The band has occasionally brought up the skinless girl on stage and let her be roughed up, covered in fake blood, while the band performed earlier in the band's career, obviously. And now, Skinless handed out long tubes of foam for the audience to beat each other up while the band played. These tubes were nicknamed the Logs of Brutality, which I thought was pretty cool. Skinless does have a sick-ass live performance, I must say. I have watched some of their live shows. It's fucking incredible. Now, Skinless's 1998 debut album, Progression Towards Evil, was an independent release which garnered the band high praise by fans and critics. In June 2010, Skinless played a reunion show with the lineup from the last two full-length albums. Guitarist Noah Carpenter wanted Skinless to continue in this formation, but the band's fire was not there anymore, so to speak. So in April 2011, Skinless officially split up, but soon after announced a farewell performance at Maryland Death Fest in 2011. All the members are continuing as musicians in other bands. And then Skinless later went on to reform in 2013, which was the original lineup from Progression Towards Evil. The band then added a second guitarist, Dave Matthews. Skinless also released a new album entitled Only the Ruthless Remain on June 2nd, 2015, with their first release since Trample the Weak, Hurdle the Dead in 2006, which is the album we're going to be reviewing tonight. Now, this album kicks off with a sample that says, "From this day forward, my people will crouch and conspire and plot and plan for the inevitable day of man's downfall, the day when he finally turns his weapon against his own kind. When cities lie buried under the radioactive rubble, when the sea is Dead Sea and the land is a wasteland, and that day is upon you now." Now, what comes after this sample is pure heaviness. Some people claim this is a slam band, which I guess I really can't argue with too much. However, as you guys know, some slam bands lean more towards the death metal side, and some lean more towards the core side, and Skinless leans more towards the fucking death metal side, without a fucking doubt. Now, this is an album I attained without any prior notion of the band. As we're all too well aware, being brutal is one of the current trends circulating in the music scene at present, with all these new fucking deathcore bands popping up and all this stupid horse shit that the kids are enjoying because they don't fucking, I don't know, I guess they don't feel a passion really in music anymore. But it does It leads to a lot of intolerable horse shit that is simply trying too hard to fulfill brutality. That's on one side of the coin, and on the other side, we have bands like Skinless and their 2006 release, Trample the Weak, Hurdle the Dead. For just over 35 minutes, Skinless assaults their listeners' ears with some heavy fucking brutal death metal, predominantly based around the theme of war, rounding it off with their rendition of a Black Sabbath classic. Now, throughout the album, Skinless have made appropriate use of samples, unlike many other bands in the genre that fucking use samples, but then it throws you off of the whole fucking song. Now, this actually, they utilize film samples, which end up compromising the bulks of their songs. Skinless implements them in fashion that builds the foundation to each track and concludes them accordingly. One of the more memorable samples leads the Sinister into a urinal disgust. One witty 3-second sound clip sums up the whole basis of the album and shows that samples can be good for a song when chosen wisely and trimmed so they're not long and don't become overbearing. Now, the vocals on this record range from a deep growl to a death metal roar, all the way up to a higher pitched scream. And the change from the album, it can be unpredictable. It's very fucking unpredictable as anything. And for me as a listener, if an album has poor vocals, then this fact tends to overshadow even the best guitar work of all time. As yes, I can still respect the guitar work, it still doesn't quite hold the same fucking brutality as it once did. Now, I will confess that it took me a few listens again before I was able to appreciate the vocalist's technique. It's not that he's bad or anything. In fact, he's far from it. It's just that his style took a while to sink in. However, after a few spins, I allowed the vocals to grow on me a little bit, and their contribution to this album is fantastic. And if you're not a big fan of the typical burp vocals that are often featured in brutal death metal, then you'll find a welcome change here. He manages to maintain the necessary edge whilst adding his own flavor to the style, which I think is fucking amazing. Now, a downside that I do have found when listening to this album is that both the vocal and guitar work tend to dominate over the production. The drums can be heard, and what is offered brings a vital component to the mix. The drummer plays with the typical technicality that you would expect in a accompaniment of the guitars, but their presence is perhaps too subdued. In the grand scheme of things, whilst the bass is almost completely drowned out on this album, I can't fucking hear it at all, to be honest with you. It is obvious that it participates in this thick sound in each track, combining with the double bass to form an impenetrable wall of bass brutality. To top off the madness, Skinless completes this release with Sabbath's Wicked World, renovating it in a death metal style. No, the track is still left with the bluesy feel that's evident in Sabbath's music, but Skinless bring basically their own style to the table, making it seem less like a cover and more like its own track. And it is definitely fucking suited for this album, Trample the Weak, Hurdle the Dead. To comment on the length of this release, I don't consider it too short at all. For an album such as this, to be much longer would detract from this intensity. As just under 37 minutes, it is the perfect length for its style and suits it in your face approach absolutely. Now, I will say, don't come to this album expecting to hear a bunch of fucking technical playing, nor should you expect great variation from each song. There's nothing really new here, but that's not to say this album isn't enjoyable. To put it simply, Trample the Weak, Hurdle the Dead is an unrelenting, single-minded slab of modern death metal that will proudly pond away at your eardrums for a shade of just under 37 minutes, leaving you bloodthirsty and hungry for war. And like I said, it doesn't make the album bad at all whatsoever. But I have heard better death metal albums before, but for brutal death metal, this is pretty damn solid. So overall, I do give this album a 7 out of 10. Again, it's not the best death metal I heard, but for these modern times, it definitely fucking dominates any fucking deathcore I've ever fucking heard, which is fucking amazing. Brutality is all. Let me put it this way: if you're looking for something fucking brutal, Skinless will definitely fucking do it for you. Anyways, guys, that's gonna wrap up this review of Trample the Weak, Hurdle the fucking Dead. If you guys would like to see me review any more albums, leave them down in the comments below. And if you would like to join me or Chaos's Discord server, links for those will also be down in the description below as well. Take care, everyone, and don't forget to stay fucking metal. Cheers, everyone.